Hello! Once again, it's time to sit back and enjoy our fantastic gold medal winning exhibitors' plants in this year's show. For this year's show roundup, we have a guided nursery tour of the Culinary Herb Company. We have TV horticulturist Camilla Bassett-Smith sharing her love and knowledge of daffodils. Lynne Dibley pots up a mixed planter for displaying your houseplants a la Chelsea. We also have some quick tips from our exhibitors and our Q&A session. Subscribe to our YouTube channel and enjoy over 140 videos.
Potting up a summer succulent bowl. Succulents are great for the summer. They enjoy all the wonderful light levels outside, and potting up a bowl is a perfect way to enjoy several of them together. Get yourself a nice shallow bowl, some nice gritty compost, half grit and half John Innes number 2 is what we use, and you'll need some upright plants that you place in the centre, and then some rosette plants that we place either side, and 2 trailing plants in the opposite sides. And then you need to fill in the gaps with more gritty compost in and around the plants and firm them in gently. Once you're happy with that, just give them a little shake into place, and then we like to top dress with grit. This just keeps them looking nice and finishes it off if you're going to put it on display in your garden for the summer.
I've loved daffodils ever since I was a little girl, and today I wanted to share with you just some of the many beautiful varieties that there are. I think most people will recognise the good old yellow trumpet as a daffodil. This is what we've all grown to know and love over the years, the likes of Carlton or King Alfred, and that to many people is a traditional daffodil. But there are so many more to think about, classed into 13 different divisions, and these look at the form and the shape of those different daffodils. So following the trumpets, you have division 2s, the large cups, and then you get on to division 3, small cup daffodils. And this is an example of a small cup. You can see the corona in the centre, really small in comparison to those outer petals. And there's actually, as well as the 13 different divisions, there is a colour coding of daffodils, which takes the form of a number followed by a couple of colours. Now the number of this one as a small cup would be a division 3, so it would be 3, with a Y for the yellow of the outside petals, and then we've got a slightly orange rim, so you'd have an O, and then yellow in the middle, so Y again. So that's how they're determined colour-wise as well. So a division 1 trumpet, all yellow, would be 1 Y-Y. So that's a division 1 trumpet with yellow petals and a yellow cup. So that's the way that specialists look at them colour-wise. But back to the divisions, we've got up to 3, I think. So division 4 is the double daffodils. This is a beautiful one called Dick Wilden. Really, really pretty. And double daffodils look really more like peonies, I often think. Can be a little bit heavy on the stem, some of the newer varieties. The older ones, perhaps Mary Copeland, Irene Copeland from the sort of 20s and 30s, slightly smaller. But as we've bred more and more, they've become perhaps larger and heavier. But they have quite sturdy stems. I mean, this one again here is Tender Beauty. And such a gorgeous flower on that. A really big double division 4. You then go to division 5, and that is the triandrous daffodils, and one that many people may recognise, if I can find it in here, is Thalia. Now Thalia, I would say, is quite a critically acclaimed daffodil. Many of the top horticulturalists will say that this is one of their favourites, really. It's very classic. I know Rachel de Tame likes it a lot. Monty Don has it in his garden. Many people will really champion this particular division 5 daffodil. Very, very dainty and good in swathes as well. Quite good in shade too, this one, but very, very pretty. And then moving on to the division 6. Now this is the cyclaminius with those backward petals. Can you see they fly away almost like wings from that very pretty cup. This is a Brian Duncan introduction. Can't remember which actual one this is, but it's very pretty with a pink cup. I have so many in the garden that sometimes you do lose track. But very pretty with those backwards petals, and that's how you identify the cyclaminias. And then onto the really sweet smelling ones. We have the jonquillas, the Division 7s, and these smell so super sweet, very old-fashioned really, and the Division 8s, which give you something like this. This is Avalanche, and that fragrance is unbelievable. And these are the kind of daffodils that you'll see coming over from the Isles of Scilly at Christmas time, the likes of Grand Soleil d'Or or the paper whites as well. All very sweet scented, a little tender sometimes. Pop them in quite a sheltered spot, I would. But there's so many different ones to choose from. And avalanches are really one of my favourites actually, that I grow by the back door, so you can benefit from that scent when you come out. You've then got the Division 9s, the Poeticus. Look at this. And this is the Poeticus recurvus, people might recognise as the pheasant's eye. But this one is actually Actea. And often they have quite a green centre, a green eye. Really always the white petals, and then that sort of really often red rim with that green eye. But very, very pretty. The Poet's daffodils, and these are a later one, so you can get the Poets right into May, which is really good for extending that season. I just have to mention this one. I forgot to say, this is a gorgeous trumpet, a Division 1, but it's called Easter Bonnet. So I thought particularly appropriate for this time of year. Really pretty with that pink on the trumpet. Now, pink having been introduced around about the 1920s, R.O. Backhouse was the first pink introduction, so relatively new in the world of daffodils, but it just proves so many different colours, not just yellow, that you might think. Division 10s are the Bulbocodium, the hoop petticoats, which mostly have gone over now where we are at this time of year, but very, very dainty. And then Division 11s, the split corona, that split cup, if you can see, they lay back onto those petals, but it's sort of split that cup. I really like these. They're quite, again, a modern introduction of breeding, but I find them really different and something to talk about. This one's Exotic Mystery, with that split cup there as well. I think this is coming under a Division 11 anyway. It has got the split cup. Yeah, really, really unusual. Division 12 are the miscellaneous, and then Division 13 are your wild ones. So that would be your Pseudo-Narcissus, Wordsworth's daffodils. So many to choose from. There are over 25,000 different cultivars, and I love them all, but so much choice. And you can see why I love them. So I wish you a spring full of beautiful daffodils.
Hello everyone, my name's Peter. I'm from the Culinary Herb Company, and welcome to my nursery virtual tour. Starting in the propagation glasshouse, we've got a heat bench on either side of the glasshouse, and on this side we have thousands of little seedlings that we're growing. This is where the seeds are germinated. This is heated to 20 degrees. The gaps that you can see are currently being filled on a daily basis. Once the seedlings come out of the heat bench, they're put onto the main table, and this is where everything gets a chance to harden up a little bit before everything's planted. On the other side of the glasshouse, we've got another heat bench, and this heat bench is for cuttings and cuttings only. And this heat bench is heated to 18 degrees, so just a little bit less for the cuttings than the seedlings. As you can see, lots and lots of cuttings, various different stages. As soon as there's a gap, we can then fill it with another tray of a different variety of plant. And once again, when the cuttings have rooted, they get put onto the table with the seedlings, and we are then putting these on into pots. There's quite a few here which are ready to go, and they get potted on into pots, and then they get put into the polytunnels. This is lime mint. It's been on the table for about 2 weeks after coming out of the heat bench, and as you can see, it's got a really good root system to it, and that's what we wait for before the plants are potted on. It gives them a really good chance of survival and a good chance of getting going and growing in the pots in the polytunnels. This is Mexican hyssop. Again, looking for a really good root system. That's ready to go. That is ready to get planted. Same as this one here. This is Nepeta Persian blue. We call it catmint Persian blue. Again, really good, strong root system there. And these plants are ready to get potted on. So out of the glass house and onto the main nursery, we've got 3 commercial polytunnels next to each other, and we've got a outdoor plant standing area where plants are all hardened off before they go to a show or sold online or to a farmer's market. So these plants have just started coming out now. It's been very cold recently, so we've been slightly delayed this year. And this is where the plants are grown inside the polytunnel. We've got lots of different plants at various different stages. And the gaps that you can see here are the plants that have been bought outside today. And these gaps will be filled very quickly with plants that are going to be potted up from the glass house. This is polytunnel number 2. Again, it's pretty full. The gaps you can see again are the plants that are ready to go outside to be hardened off, and plants that are going out to the farmers markets and online are all on our trolleys ready to go. And that is the end of the nursery tour.
Hi, Stephen from Calamazag Nursery in Cornwall. We're Dianthus specialists. So, our nursery's been around since 1956. We're 3rd generation in the family growing the Dianthus. Top 3 tips for growing pinks: plant them in a sunny place, free draining soil, and feed them with a high potash feed.
Hello, I'm Lynn from Dibley's Nurseries. I'm going to show you today how we pot up some of our houseplants and turn them from a standard plant you'd buy in a garden centre into some of the bigger show plants we use at the flower shows. I'm taking a rather attractive bowl that's got drainage holes underneath, and I'm using some nice bright colour begonias. This is a variety called Merrymaker. And then I'm using some Tradescantias, some Chlorophytum, and Seleginella, which is a moss that makes a nice creeping edge to the pot. I'm using a good houseplant, compost, and I'm just going to put some at the base to start with, because the pots I'm using are going to be slightly shallower than this bowl they're going into. As I'm putting compost in, I'm just breaking any large lumps up. I then use 3 pots which are the same size as the begonia pots to make the hollows where those are going to go and just drop into. And I fill up the compost around the outside of these pots. This compost needs to be firmed in but not too compressed, otherwise the roots won't spread out from the root ball they're in at the moment into this fresh compost. If you use a good compost, there should be enough feed in there for the following 6 to 8 weeks, and then after that they'll need some extra feed. And because these are foliage plants, a good nitrogen-based compost, a good nitrogen-based feed is ideal for these. I'm just filling in the centre there. So that's firmed down and tidied up a little bit. So as I take these pots out, it leaves a hollow for the begonia to slot straight into. So I'll take the label off, break the roots off the base, and then drop this straight in. I'm aiming for 3 identical begonias in here, and this is going to be a reasonably tall growing display bowl. And as I go, I'm just firming the compost a little bit. So, in the spaces between these begonias, I'm now going to add some trailing Tradescantia. And this variety is Tradescantia zebrina Violet Hill. And these have been just in plain compost. They root really quickly, these plants do. These have been in for about 4 or 5 weeks, and they've already produced a really good crop of roots. And I'm just going to drop them into a little hollow. And as these grow, they will trail over the edge and break up the line of the pot. So I'm going to put 3 of those equally spaced around this bowl, because I'm aiming to have a bowl that's good from every direction, not just from one side. And then I'm using some of this curly chlorophytum, and again these have been in the compost for a few weeks and they've got some nice roots growing down from them. These are the offsets you get off the mother plant, so that's the stem that came from the original plant. That can come off now, it's just loose. And again, I'll just dot a couple of those in, and they will grow up and break up the line of the base of the begonia. I've chosen some nice variegated plants because they make a nice contrast, the green to the bright red on the begonia. And then I'm using some of these little plugs of Selaginella. They've been in again about 4 or 5 weeks and they've rooted into the plug. And then I'm going to dot these around the surface, and these will make a lovely mossy covering on the compost. So eventually you won't see any of this compost on the top of the pot. And again, as they grow, they'll grow out and around the edge of the bowl. When you're growing plants commercially, you don't always tend to be too tidy with what you're doing, so I'm just putting these in. I know they'll root in really quickly once I give them the water. And I put about 6 in there, that's the 7th one. I'll brush off the compost around the edge and I'll water that in, just rinse the edge of the pot as well, and that's ready to go. The only thing I will do with the begonias is pinch out the growing tip, and this will stop them getting any much taller than they are, but also helps to encourage them to produce some side shoots. So if you've got some really nice plants you want to pot up, this is a really nice way of making a display bowl. And this is a plant that we did a few months back, and it will probably be going to Chelsea Flower Show. So it's got the Tradescantia, the Selaginella, and it's all growing together and nice and covering the edge of the pot. And that's Begonia Benicachiba.
This is Waterside Nursery. We'll try anything once. So we move on to, well, this is actually a different sort of propagation. This one's been done by division. And you can see we've got it in a mesh basket, because this one likes to have its roots coming out. You can tell that. Look at it, rooted on beautifully. And this one will be moved on to a larger basket, but already they're in their clay. So we use a clay compost always for pond plants. So you'll see it nice and brown. Clay compost isn't black. It's not a multi-purpose at all. So it should be brown and I'm almost going to say claggy to the touch, not loose. So it doesn't float up in the water as you put it in. So these have been divided and then they'll be moved on shortly. Now that's a Butomus umbellatus. Quite high in the water there because the crown does like to be underwater.
Good afternoon everyone, Matt Soper here from Hampshire Carnivorous Plants, and my plant here this year has to be this Pinguicula hybrid Anna. It's an absolute stunner, produces beautiful dark purple flowers and a rosette of these lime green sticky leaves. Not only is it a beautiful plant, it's easy to grow and it's excellent for catching scarab fly and fruit flies, you know, the tiny little buzzy insects you get around the fruit bowl and around your other house plants. So it's ideal to sit on an east or west facing windowsill with your other house plants. And so not only is it a great looking plant, it does a great job as well. These are available now on the website to purchase. Well worth a go. Pinguicula Anna.
Our 3D virtual floral hall is on our website. You can move around the showground and see all our exhibitors' displays. You'll find all our gardening Q&A sessions on our YouTube channel. Here's an extract from last year's show.
So Lynn, any little top tip, just a quick tip you want to mention?
Just keep an eye out for pests and diseases this time of the year, especially it's sort of we first start seeing things like aphid appearing on plants, and they go for the young growth. So look at the crown of the plants where the flowers, buds are, where the young leaves are, underneath the leaves, and as soon as you see aphid, just squeeze them away. Get whatever you use against aphid, use it. And most sprays you're going to find in the garden centre for aphid, they are a contact spray. So you need to spray and actually touch the aphid with the spray. Otherwise it won't work. So spray all over the plant and including underneath the plant, the leaves of the plants.
Okay, thank you, Lynn. Mel?
Right, we're getting into the time of year where you can happily divide your hostas, and I've just, for your delectation, written a newsletter on division. So if you've got any questions regarding dividing your hostas, then take a look on our website. It's linked from the home page because it's the newest newsletter, and go for it. It's very simple.
Okay, that's good, lovely. Matt?
Yeah, if you're growing temperate carnivorous plants, by that I mean Sarracenia, Venus flytraps and sundews, they're all coming into their full spring growth now. You cannot overwater the plants. They need to be very, very well hydrated. Never ever let the plants dry out at this time of year because you're going to spoil all the growth that's going to come on later in the season. If you want to see more about this, we've got this on our YouTube channel at the moment. It is very, very important watering at this time of year. So that's a really good tip.
Okay, lovely. And Rosie?
Yeah, I think watch out for frost damage on the herbaceous that's just coming through at the moment. Last week we had minus 5.4 and a lot of the new young growth is now black. So, and a lot of people are asking us now, what does frost damage look like? And a lot of plant material, the leaves looked brilliant. They're now going brown, they'll go black. cut all the frost damage stuff off so that new growth can come through. I think that's the key thing at the moment.
Okay, thank you, Rosie. And Steve?
Yeah, well, this is the absolute best time of year for repotting your agapanthus or your tubagia and splitting. But one of the most important things, this is the time of year to start feeding agapanthus and tubagia every fortnight right up to the end of September. This is the key time of year for doing this. Any later in the season for splitting and repotting agapanthus, and you're going to affect flowering this year. We recommend a good high potash feed, and we find that we use the Hoyland Plant Centre feed, and it's absolutely terrific.
Marvellous. I expect nothing less. So thank you to everybody for joining us today to answer these questions. And my tip would be to everybody is, support these British independent growers, and either through their websites, their nurseries, or visit them at flower shows and see the fantastic displays that they all create. Buy lots of plants and enjoy your garden. And if you want lots of gardening tips, I'm just going to get my little plug in now. I do a weekly gardening video that goes out on Facebook and on YouTube. It's called Pots and Trowels. And each week we do something. It could be vegetable garden, houseplants, lawns, fruit, vegetables, you name it, we do something different. So that's Pots and Trowels on YouTube and Facebook. So thank you very much for listening, and we hope to see you at one of the shows later on in the year. Bye. Thank you, everybody. Thank you.
Bye.